For 29 years, the United States kept its most dangerous men on a rock in the middle of San Francisco Bay, Alcatraz, the prison they swore no one could escape. Cold water on every side, a current strong enough to drag a man out to sea, and a mile and a half of open bay between the cell and the shore. The worst criminals in America ended up here. Al Capone, Machine Gun Kelly, men that no other prison could hold. And then, on one June night in 1962, 3 of them simply disappeared. They left fake heads in their beds, crawled out through holes they had scraped with spoons, and slipped into the black water. They were never seen again. To this day, nobody knows if they drowned or if they made it. I used AI to rebuild Alcatraz exactly as it stood, from the cell blocks to the escape that has never been solved. Stay with me. This one has no clean ending. Alcatraz is a bare little island, barely 22 acres of rock, sitting right in the middle of San Francisco Bay. The Spanish named it after the birds. For most of its life, it was a military post. In the 1850s, the Army fortified it to guard the bay, and by the end of the century, it had become a military prison, holding soldiers and prisoners the country wanted out of sight. The island had no fresh water of its own. Every drop of water, every sack of food, every guard and every prisoner had to come across the bay by boat. That isolation was the whole point, and in the 1930s, the government decided to use it for something new. The early 30s were the age of the American gangster. Prohibition had made criminals rich and famous. Men like John Dillinger and Al Capone were front-page news, and the public was starting to wonder if anyone could actually lock them up. So the federal government took over Alcatraz and turned it into something the country had never had. A maximum security prison built for the worst of the worst. Not a place to reform anyone. A place to hold the men no other prison could handle. In August of 1934, the first federal convicts came across the water in chains. The rules were brutal by design. 1 man to a cell, a head count 12 times a day, and in the early years, a rule of silence so strict that men were forbidden to speak for most of the day. Some of them cracked under it. Life on the rock was built to grind a man down. A cell was about 5 feet by 9, a cot, a sink, a toilet, and the cold. The bay wind never really stopped, and the fog rolled in for days at a time. You earned everything: food, work, a visit, even a library book. The 4 basics, food, clothing, shelter, and medical care, were your right. Everything past that you had to behave for. And here was the cruelest thing about the place. On a clear night, when the wind came in from the east, the prisoners could hear the city. Music, laughter, car horns, people celebrating on New Year's Eve 1.5 miles away. Freedom you could hear and never touch. Men said that was the worst punishment of all. The most famous man ever sent to Alcatraz arrived almost at the start. Al Capone. In Chicago, he had been untouchable, a millionaire crime boss who owned police and politicians. The law could never pin the killings on him, so in the end, they got him for not paying his taxes. On Alcatraz, none of his power meant a thing. He was just a number, mopping floors and playing banjo in the prison band. He tried to buy influence and found there was nothing to buy. Worse, the syphilis he had carried for years was creeping into his brain. The great Al Capone slowly lost his mind inside these walls. and by the time he left, he was a confused, broken man. The rock had done exactly what it was built to do. Capone was not alone. Alcatraz collected legends. George Machine Gun Kelly, the kidnapper, spent 17 years here, telling stories about crimes that grew bigger every time he told them. Alvin Creepy Carpus, once public enemy #1, served longer on the rock than anyone, more than 25 years. And then there was Robert Stroud, who the movies would later call the Birdman of Alcatraz. That name has fooled people for decades. Stroud really did keep birds and became an expert on them, but that was at a different prison. On Alcatraz, he was never allowed a single bird. He passed his 17 years here in near total isolation, one of the most dangerous men in the system. The nickname was Hollywood. The reality was a locked door. Everyone who came to Alcatraz heard the same thing. You cannot escape. And for a long time it was true, because the guards did not need walls to hold you. The bay held you. The water around the island stays brutally cold all year, near 50 degrees. The currents run fast and pull hard toward the open ocean under the Golden Gate. The guards liked to let a rumor spread that the bay was full of man-eating sharks. That part was not really true. The truth was enough. Cold water drains a swimmer's strength in minutes, and the current does the rest. In theory, a strong man might reach the shore. In practice, the freezing water and the pull of the tide had killed the idea long before anyone tried. Or so everyone believed. Men tried anyway. Over 29 years, 36 prisoners made 14 separate escape attempts. Most were caught within hours, dripping and shaking on the rocks. Some were shot. A few just vanished into the bay and were written down as drowned. The worst of it came in 1946. A group of inmates overpowered a guard, seized weapons from the gun gallery, and tried to shoot their way out. But they could not get the key to the yard door, and the break turned into a siege. For 2 days, guards and prisoners fought inside the cell house. The Marines were called in. They dropped rifle grenades through the roof. When it was over, 2 guards and 3 inmates were dead. They called it the Battle of Alcatraz. After that, the rock's name as escape-proof only grew. To break it would take something patient and clever and very quiet. That something arrived in the shape of 3 ordinary-looking convicts. Frank Morris was a bank robber with a reported genius-level IQ, a man who had been in and out of institutions his whole life and was very good at getting out of them. Then came the Anglin brothers, John and Clarence, bank robbers from Florida, close the way only brothers can be, and stubborn. The 3 ended up in neighboring cells along the same row, and they noticed something the prison had missed. Alcatraz was old now. 30 years of salt air had been chewing at the concrete. Around the little ventilation grill at the back of each cell, the wall had gone soft. Soft enough, maybe, to dig. What they did next took more than a year. With spoons stolen from the dining hall, a saw blade, and a drill they built from a broken fan motor, they widened the vent holes at the backs of their cells, working a little each night and hiding the noise under the music of the evening hour. Behind the cells ran an unguarded utility corridor. One by one they broke into it and turned it into a secret workshop. Up in the space above the cell block, they built a raft and life vests out of more than 50 stolen raincoats, sealing the seams with steam from the pipes. They carved paddles from wood, and to beat the nightly count, they made dummy heads. Real hair from the barbershop floor, soap and toilet paper for the faces, painted to look like sleeping men. By June, everything was ready. On the night of June 11th, 1962, they went. Morris and the two Anglins slid the fake heads into their beds, pulled the blankets up, and crawled out through the holes in their cells for the last time. A fourth man, who had helped dig, could not widen his own wall in time and was left behind. He would tell the whole story later. The three climbed up through the utility corridor, out through a ventilator, onto the roof, and down a drain pipe to the ground. They crossed to the water's edge on the northeast shore, blew up the raincoat raft, and pushed off into the black, freezing bay. At the morning count, the guards saw 3 sleeping heads. It was hours before anyone realized the heads were made of soap. By then, the men were long gone, somewhere out on the water, or under it. So what happened to them? Officially, the FBI decided they drowned. The bay was cold, the raft was crude, and no body could stay down there forever without turning up. A few raft pieces and some personal items washed ashore. Case closed, they said. But nothing was ever certain. No bodies were ever found. And over the years, strange things surfaced. A family who swore the Anglin brothers sent them Christmas cards. A photograph, some believe, shows the two brothers alive in South America years later. A letter, decades on, from a man claiming to be Frank Morris. The U.S. Marshals have never actually closed the case. They will keep it open until the man would be over 100 years old. The truth is, nobody knows. And that not knowing is exactly why the world never forgot Alcatraz. The escape was nearly the end of the story. Alcatraz was falling apart. The same salt water that had softened those walls had wrecked the whole building, and it cost a fortune to run a prison you could only reach by boat. Less than a year after the escape, in 1963, the government shut Alcatraz down and shipped its last prisoners off the island. For a while, it just sat empty. Then, in 1969, a group of Native American activists occupied the island for 19 months, claiming it as their own and forcing the country to face how it had treated their people. Today, the Rock is a national park. More than 1 million visitors a year take the boat out, walk the cold corridors, and stand inside a 5x9 cell to feel it. Not one prisoner is officially known to have escaped Alcatraz and reached the shore alive. But 3 men left an ending that nobody could ever finish. Thanks for walking through it with me. If this brought the Rock back to life for you, hit like and subscribe, and tell me in the comments which lost place I should rebuild next.